All right. This is Tempo Community Call, December 2022 edition, last of the year, best of the year. We're going to talk about 2.0, of course, as we have for the past 4 or 5 months, maybe. We talked last time about sharing kind of what we have internally for phases of TraceQL. So we thought we'd talk about it. Ananya's here. What's up, Ananya? And I put other stuff question mark for hey, Ananya. So good to see you, man. I put other stuff question mark in case anybody else has thoughts, questions, whatever, because I do think if we just do our content, it won't be super long. You're welcome to ask whatever. Alton, yeah? Sorry, did you raise your hand? Oh, okay, cool. No worries. Ananya, would you like to run the call?
Absolutely, as the person who knows most about the project.
That's good to see you. Okay, so let's get into this. 2.0, date internally that we've been talking about, we're committed to internally is the end of January. I know that's not what we wanted, but we have it. We feel confident we can hit it. We are going to get back from the break. There's been a lot of conferences and then, of course, vacation at the end of the year, which has strung things out a bit. And we want to make sure that we deliver a good Tempo 2.0. If I'm being honest, I think we maybe bit off a bit too much. Maybe we should have done Parquet as a 1.6 only, and then TraceQL as a 2.0. Putting both of those features in at the same time has really stretched the team. It's really two huge changes at the same time. And I think the cost of that has been a little bit longer than we expected for this release. So end of January is the goal. We're going to get back from our break and be feature complete and just be hammering on it for a month to improve config, to improve the experience, to both in terms of Grafana, the UI, as well as, of course, the Tempo backend as well. So that's where we are on 2.0, and hopefully that's all right. Also want to talk about resources a little bit, and I get the feeling from this internal group because I kind of consider you all the inner circle of the community, the people who are most plugged in, who are talking to us the most about needs. And I want to get your feeling for this because I feel like 2.0, when it comes out, is going to require, with the default config, roughly 2x the resources of 1.5. Reason being, of course, the Parquet change. So this will be like a total cluster TCO increase of 2 times. You're going to want to scale up your ingesters and compactors about double as soon as you install it. How does that sound as like a member of the community? Internally, this is not a big deal. We're well below margins. It's still a very cheap database to run on our side, but I am concerned about, I guess, community reaction when we say something like 2 times the resources and like the blog post for 2.0. I would appreciate if anybody has some feedback on how does that hit? Like you're running this internally. How do you feel about a 2x resource increase? Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, I think at least for us, still like you mentioned, it performs super fast anyways. So we are using all the tools that use like 4 or 5 times the same resources for observability also. So then like putting 2x is still fine.
Okay.
At least for us. Yeah.
Okay. That's good to hear. If anybody else has some feedback, we'd like to hear it. Either way, negative or positive, of course. To me, this is also not a concern. Tempo as it stands is pretty slim to some of the other tools. Okay. We feel the same way. Compared to our other backends, Tempo is the cheapest to run. It remains the cheapest to run with this 2x increase. So if others are having that same experience, that's great to hear. I have been concerned about that announcement externally. Like I said, internally, the right choice is just to, spend the money, move forward, and add the features. But I really want the community to feel like we're still delivering, a high performance database. So hearing that's positive. I will say V2 will remain supported as a trace by ID lookup option for the foreseeable future. We have no plans to deprecate V2. So we have Parquet, which is the new backend. V2 is the new backend. I'm sorry, V2 is the old backend, and it'll do trace by ID only. So for people who are running super high volume clusters, if you want to continue using that backend and do your discovery through logs or other means, that will remain an option. And we have no plans, like I said, to deprecate that. For people who want TraceQL and want some of these nicer search features, then Parquet will be required. We do think we can kind of continue whittling this down. There are definitely some things we can improve, but at release, I do expect a 2x TCO increase. And I've been kind of nervous about announcing that. So it's great to hear some positive feedback that despite that sounds very bad to me in my head, your experience is similar to ours internally, where it's cheap to run. It's cheaper than other options, and doubling it is not going to be super concerning, I suppose. All right.
Hey, actually, if I could take a quick poll, is anyone here using Parquet already for the backend? This 2x is really more for about the default configuration, which is swapping it. Yeah. So if you're already using Parquet on the backend, then the increase won't be quite 2x. It'll be less than that. I mean, maybe just like rough estimate is like 50% probably. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you on tip of Maine? Man, it's wild out there, Fausto. I don't know. Half the PRs. Well, I mean, we do pretty good, but occasionally we do push something in that just breaks everything. Cool. All right. I do have a TraceQL roadmap to share. Marty, do you want to do that? I did jot a bunch of notes down that I was going to say. I can do it. I basically like throwing you on the spot here after I kind of prepared this content.
That's okay. Do you have a slide or something?
No, I have a notepad that I was going to like paste into the text. I was going to paste into the old, whatever this is, Google Doc.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, go ahead and paste that.
All right. So we've broken up TraceQL phases internally. I'm just going to dump all this stuff in here, and then we'll talk through it. We've broken up, well, of course, this is going to format horribly. We've broken up the phases internally, and we'll just share that with you basically raw as it is. How can I do this where it doesn't? I don't want the bullet points. Somebody who's way better with Google Docs, fix that for me, please. So TraceQL release. This is what is in Tempo now. We use it. It's set up in our internal ops cluster right now. And so this will be available at 2.0 release. Type awareness was one of the big, of course, goals of this new backend. So you can look for ranges on status code. I love this feature, right? Boolean logic, and I have a simple and here. So status code greater than 200, less than equal to 300. Let's look for a range of status codes. We all know that HTTP status code ranges have meaning. And that will all be available, including more advanced things. You can put those in parentheses and or that with another condition. Basically, the normal kind of Boolean logic you're used to is going to be 100% available here in these conditions. Resource for span scoping, I think, is a cool feature, because right now when you search for a tag, it searches everything, but resources tend to have way fewer values to search than span. So if you know, like resource.environment, if you know it's on your resource instead of on your span attributes, this will speed up your queries immensely, and you can specify that in TraceQL. You can't in the current search. And then we have two basic aggregations available. So like, I want to look for all traces where a count of a certain kind of span is greater than 10, or the average of a field. I put duration, but you can average any field. So you could, in this case, I'm looking for, like, let's say slower database queries. Show me all the times where I have the database is greater than 100 milliseconds across all the matching spans. So these are the kinds of things that'll be available at release. And we'll have, some documentation and blog posts and stuff that kind of detail all this to give people some help. Yeah, I get. Can you do that, Marty?
Yeah, you can keep piping there.
Nice.
Yeah, that would work.
Okay, so you can do that too. I do think we're talking about how we're getting back in January and we're working hard to improve this. I think one of the things we really need to hammer on is the error returns when you type an invalid query, because it's pretty rough. It's like the normal kind of like unexpected token at position, and that's not a great experience, right? So I think that's going to be one of the things we try to improve is when you do type a bad query, the error message will hopefully help you out a little bit better. Like I said, at release, the old search will be available as well as TraceQL. So for users who want the old search, still there, and we will have a way where we kind of phase this all forward into TraceQL. I've been pushing the Grafana team to keep that as a builder, even after we kind of deprecate the old search and we only are going to use TraceQL. So if some of this seems intimidating to you or your users, everything will remain the same. They'll be able to do their current stuff exactly like they do it, and maybe they can start exploring this more advanced language as they want to. Okay, so phase 2, we're going to add some more aggregations, at least min and max, maybe some more, I'm not sure. And then grouping is a really cool feature in phase 2 where, you can specify some kind of conditions, and then you can group, or I think we put by, and then let's say namespace. So I want to, group by namespace or environment or application name or whatever you want to do. You can group by some kind of thing, and then you can, like Marty's showing, maybe look for account, for instance. So you want to see a condition, you want to group it by a certain value, and then only find ones where it's over 10 in a specific namespace, perhaps, or any namespace in this case. This one I kind of broke out to phase 3. Pipeline comparisons are kind of interesting, where you can say, like, when we designed this language, we kind of went off the rails, but I love it. You could say, for instance, hgb.status equals 200 count. This works in the language, is greater than http.status equals, let's say, just 300. I'm making up a fake example here, right? Count. So trace is where one status is more common than a second status. Thank you for adding code. That's the actual semantic convention name there. So pipeline comparisons are available. And then finally, I think these structural operators, which is like looking for parents, descendants, or siblings of spans. So we have this greater than sign, which is just parent. I want to set a set of spans where the parent. I want a set of spans where there's a descendant relationship, or a set of spans with a sibling relationship. And that's kind of where we're aiming for. And then the undefined phase, the future phase of metrics. I think perhaps this will be post 2.0. This makes very much sense to me to continue forward with this phase 2. But I do wonder if we should talk to the community, you all, about these next 3 steps and what we kind of value as a community from this language, because it's quite a bit of cost to implement these. Do we want metrics more than pipeline comparisons? Pipeline comparisons is pretty advanced. I don't think a lot of people are going to use that, whereas metrics might immediately be useful. Or the structural operators, I think, may be more advantageous than the pipeline comparisons. And so these kind of like input from the community after 2.0, we want no input before 2.0. We just want to cut this release. So after 2.0, we'll kind of settle some. We're going to get focused on this phase 3 thing. Let's bring this back to you all. Maybe if you have some thoughts, you could kind of talk to your own users and get some thoughts together about what you all would value next out of this language. And we can use that input to focus our efforts over the next year, basically, of work and get the things in that you're looking for. So that's TraceQL roughly. Any questions or thoughts there? If you do have feedback now, I was kind of joking about the 2.0 stuff. If you have thoughts or feedback immediately, certainly we'll take that. Yep. Cool.
Yeah, the question here, the target release date for Tempo 2.0 is the end of January.
Sure. Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, you mentioned metrics. Can you give like some examples what that might look like? I'm trying to see like what what that phase might like bring.
Sure. So the big okay, so this is what I want and nobody else wants, or I wouldn't say that. I have some people who want this style. The basic idea would be to use the same language basically to select a set of spans, which is what this is all doing. We're selecting span sets, and then pass that set of spans into some function like rate or count over time or quantile, P99 of a field over time, something like that. The current debate is pipes versus Prometheus style functions. So this is what I like because I really like sticking with the pipes. But the kind of big argument against this is we have a whole lot of different things that use this Prometheus style. Loki, LogQL does, of course, PromQL does. And so I would prefer sticking with the pipes, but in terms of like adopting users and using something they're already familiar with, most people want this more functional style here at the bottom there. So basically, right now, when you select a span set, if that span set returns, you kind of are selecting that trace. When you're doing metrics, that span set kind of turns into a stream of spans across all traces, and then you are generating like a rate or a whatever, a time series, just like you would out of Prometheus, or a time series like you generate out of Loki when you add the metrics functions.
Is this require that the metrics generator to get this data? Or,
No, so this would be like live calculated off of your traces, basically. We intend to keep the metrics generator because the metrics generator, especially at very high volume, Prometheus is, or whatever, your metrics backend that accepts Prometheus remote write, whatever that is always going to be more efficient at storing and retrieving metrics than Tempo, right? So for those who want to continue to use the metrics generator for these canned metrics, we will, keep that feature. And then we also have discussed like moving the metrics generator into kind of like the role of a ruler, where you could generate your own kind of like, you could write your own queries that are executed, as a rule, basically like Prometheus, right? You can do the Prometheus rules and they're executed once every 15 seconds and that single data point is stored so you can more efficiently query it. So that's a future thought for generator, like a way for it to go, but we're not currently working on that. We would need the metrics language first, basically.
cool. Thanks for elaborating on that.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. Appreciate it, bud. Good questions. All right. I have other stuff, ? So that's a pretty broad topic. I don't have anything in particular for other stuff. But if anyone here does, feel free to ask. It's kind of an open forum at the moment. You could type it in the doc or chat, or you could put it wherever. Keeping as close to PromQL LogQL is easy for me to drive adoption. Yeah, that's what everybody says. And I've gotten that feedback so much, I'm going to give up. I love the pipe
Joe,
style.
don't give up.
I gave up long ago, Marty. I love the pipe style, and I really want to keep it because once you're kind of like building this chain of pipes, I feel like you're in this mode where you just keep typing on the end. But the argument for keeping that functional style or switching to that functional style for metrics, and then, if you already know LogQL or you already know PromQL, suddenly like a lot of this knowledge just transfers over. And what Jarrett is saying is what everyone has told me, which is, hey, we're already using Loki, we're already using PromQL. We really just want this thing to work similarly. So I've been told this enough that I think the right choice is going to be Prometheus style. Cool.
Yeah, well, I did have one thing to think about, like another discussion topic was the structural operators and things like that, like the sibling, grandparent, or grandchild kind of stuff. Really requires new columns in the Parquet format, so we're kind of like going to align that work with kind of like vParquet 2, like in the future. And there's a lot of other things we'd like to do with the new format as well. Like this one is great, but we already know that there's more things we can do. So like maybe that changes the priority of that a little bit more. It would be things like custom columns, right? Like the ability to more like dynamically control the columns that are created. So right now it's like this fixed schema that is kind of like just a balancing act between different things that we thought would be useful. So that kind of like, that would be a really cool thing to have in vParquet 2. And while we're there, we would add the columns for these structural things. Yeah.
Yeah, Adrian is currently speccing that out from our side, and that's been a request, I believe, even from you all, and we've already have that request internally, which is great. Right now we have those blessed columns, and we either want to do full dynamic columns, which I would call unlikely, or the kind of compromise is in your settings, you choose the columns that are broken out from the main attributes column, which will allow you to do two important things. One is the columns you query on all the time, you can make their own columns, which will massively increase your efficiency of querying. And the other thing is you can pull columns out of that main attribute column that are just way too big, like enormous SQL queries or whatever, something in your org that is just cluttering that attributes column and is making it harder to query. This will be kind of like an advanced user kind of case, but we'll definitely include some details. And that's vParquet 2. We already have somebody researching that, going to write us up a design doc. His name is Adrian. He's new to the team. And the goal is for that to be in 2.1.
Oh, 2.1. Okay.
Yeah, that's right, Marty. 2.1.
Cool.
It'll be out soon after 2.0. No promises about 2.1. Well, we should get back to regular cadence. Like I said, we bit off more than we should have. There was no scope creep, just the initial scope was enormous, and we didn't quite realize that until we were into the mix. Like Parquet and TraceQL at the same time. It's been a huge amount of work. The team is really putting a ton of effort. And I think we've achieved something pretty cool by getting this together. I love what we're doing internally already. I can't wait for you all to be using it too. Technically, you can. If you use tip of main for Grafana and for Tempo, you can. The experience is rough, and that's what we're going to really focus that last month on, is cleaning that experience up. But if you use tip of main, Grafana, Tempo, and then you set TraceQL editor, I think is the Grafana flag, Grafana feature flag. And then you have to do, what is it, Marty? It's the same config as it is. The block type is vParquet. So you can fool with it now if you want. Like I said, experience is rough, and that's our goal, to make that smoothed out, ready to go for 2.0. Cool. Oh, is that in 9.3.1, Marty, and not 9.3.0? Is that what?
It will be in 9.3.1, but
Okay.
there is UI in 9.3.0, but it's not like the latest and greatest.
Okay, it's a little bit rougher, yeah. Okay, so 9.3.1 will have a nicer one.
Oh yeah, okay, I should type that somewhere else. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool. All right. If there's nothing else, we can kind of call it a day. I appreciate everyone for showing up. I appreciate the positive feedback on, kind of the resource requirements. I've been sweating that a little bit, and getting some feedback from you all is great. That's been positive. We will be ready to go in the new year with 2.0 and all the new features. I appreciate all your all's involvement and patience on this one. Thank you. That's right, Leek. All right, take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, see ya. Bye.
See ya.